And Kevin, you kicked off by saying that culture change, culture innovation is difficult, it's complex. What would you recommend to HR executives and to executives in general? To what can they do to make sure that the organization stay the course?
Yeah, I I always recommend, Wilhelm, to any executive that needs some convincing. Two things seem to resonate. One is data, and that's why I try to use a lot of data in the book and what we're showcasing. And the other is examples from companies that organization either respects or fears, so that they can see how this was put into action. Because you're exactly right. This doesn't happen overnight. But what Theo and I are talking about is these are not quick fixes. These are things that take time. And I think organizations need to have long-term strategic plans based on data and convinced by those case studies that they should give it the time to happen. Unfortunately, what happens in society is, certainly for publicly traded companies, there's a lot of shareholder pressure to increase share price immediately. And it's a tricky balance for CEOs and for boards and executive teams to manage a long-term strategic plan with the need for short-term results. And even in Microsoft's case, which you mentioned, I felt like that was actually a pretty quick turnaround. He was able, Satya, with the changes that they put in place, turn Microsoft into the most valuable company in the world. Today, they're number 2. But it's a remarkable story, and I think any organization could learn from that story, and that's why I featured them so prominently at the beginning of the book.
Fantastic. Theo?
Wilhelm, firstly, I want to bear out the point about long term. My own experience in engaging with companies is 3 to 5 years. That is the time that you really institutionalize. I mean, you could start around about 2.5 years, 3 years, you can start seeing the results. I think 3 things for me are important. Firstly, if you want to go on that route, whether it's culture change or whether it's establishing, institutionalizing people excellence in organization, it starts at the board level. Forget about it. If the board is not backing it, you will just be wandering all over the show. Secondly, for me, the crucial thing is, and I tried to touch on that in the last part of the last chapter of my book, how do you bring this into the face of the people and the decision makers in the organization, whether it's culture change like Kevin shared with us, and whether it's people excellence, that it's in the face of the people all the time, the decision makers. And what I suggest there is that you take that people, in my case now, as applicable to my book, you take that people excellence interdependency matrix, you create an ops room. We have on the one wall of this room, it's a permanent room, you have this matrix mapped out. And you have, call it status reports, you link it to video clips, to the different cells. How's leadership engaging with culture and interacting with culture in the organization? What's happening in this? And you have on a monthly basis, the top leadership of the organization sits in that forum and they take a theme to run, let's say, organizational design through the matrix and see what's the impact on the 19 other elements. And inversely, how do any of the other 19 elements affect the fact that we want to have a high performance, high networking, high collaborative type organization? And you have these conversations. We've got the technology. You can use these clips of incidents in the organization, a day in the life of the organization, where you reflect what's happening in a particular cell. So you make it visible. Thirdly, and there how I want to tie up with Kevin, is you have at all times, and it's part of the matrix, but just to emphasize that, you have what I've called, when I introduced the book, you have intelligent insight available all the time. Across all of those cells, you must have data that's been interpreted, that's used to actually show you what's happening in the organization. You must bring the organization, again, I'm repeating myself probably for the third time, you must bring it into the face of the people that they see, not, rumor or I believe what's actually happening real time, in the organization.